What's good, everybody? Scoobert Doobert here. So I just caught up with J.W. Francis. J.W. Francis describes himself as NYC's lo-fi jangle dream slacker bedroom pop. He's got a new song called Orbit out right now, and he's about to be hitting the road to go to South by Southwest as an official artist. Really, really cool musician. We get to talk about what the modern, I guess, like streaming artist journey is like. And I think it's kind of cool. You get to see a little bit behind the veil of what it actually looks like out there, trying to grow and grind and become a full-fledged musician, of which he is. But it's like that next tier, that jump where you go from, touring all the time or making a lot of music and having people hear it to, being able to afford a car. Like that big leap. And so it's fun to talk to somebody who's on that same path that I'm doing. And JW's been somebody I've admired for a long, long time, makes incredible music. And so I'm really excited for you to check out that conversation. Before we do, I also want to invite you to check out Vinyl Moon. VinylMoon.co is our proud sponsor. And it's an incredible subscription to vinyl. But it isn't just like a record of the month club. This is instead a like hand-designed, really, really cool compilation of a bunch of music that you haven't heard of yet, probably. This is something that JW has been on. This is something that I've been on. I've discovered some collaborators through it. It's this really cool network of people. And so I highly recommend it. And it's different every single month. You get these really beautiful, super cool. You see that? If you're watching the video podcast, you would be seeing something right now. Really, really cool colored vinyl. And that's not just it. It also comes with like goodies, extra cutouts and cool things, and lyric sheets. So you can dig into these artists a little bit. It's one of the best music discovery tools because you actually listen to the whole thing. Unlike a playlist where you're just kind of skimming and skipping, this allows you to dig into artists that might be under the radar. It really spans the gamut of people that have hundreds of listeners to thousands and thousands of listeners, everything in between. And so it's about the music. And I think that's a really, really cool thing. And you get your first vinyl for free. So check out vinylmoon.co. And if you're an artist, be sure to hit them up. They're always looking for great new artists to introduce to this community. It's a great way to get discovered. And it's a great way to, meet other musicians like JW and myself. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with JW Francis. What's good, everybody? I am joined with JW Francis on this episode of Love Music More. My name's Scoobert Doobert, and we are going to talk about the journey as an independent musician, navigating all of the non-traditional tour venues and the interesting, the artist journey. So welcome, JW. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Thank you, Mr. Doobert. I love your stuff as well, and I'm just really happy to be here.
Well, I first discovered your music, I think in 2020, and it was two things. So one was Vinyl Moon, which I'd love to talk to you a little bit about because they're a sponsor of this show. And I think it was 2020 that you were first on the Vinyl Moon compilation. Yeah, it was somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. It was all kind of a blur at that time. It was either
right.
2019 or 2020.
Maybe 2019. Yeah. Okay.
One of those.
So how'd you end up on the Vinyl Moon compilation?
Gosh, I mean, I'm pretty sure, I want to say it was 2019 because I'm pretty sure they were the first to press me to vinyl.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Same.
It was before my first record came out. So I was just super excited to be on a physical medium, I put music on tape before, but that felt like just so easy and cheap that I was like, I can't remember if it was an email. I'm pretty sure it was some kind of email or something. And I was a little scared at first because there was a contract involved. It was a very chill contract, but that always scares me as an individual, even outside of music.
Same. Yes.
And I'm so happy I did it because, they sent me several copies of it, which I still cherish and hold on to. And I definitely want to frame those at some point. They settle down a little bit more and build my shrine to myself. But it was such a beautiful experience because I really love the other artists on there as well. I can't remember who it was. I just remember the wow, I'm in such good company.
Yes. And you were the lead off track too.
I was,
That's
yes.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember being the first, and that was so cool because I remember getting the vinyl and being like wanting to put it on so bad because I was the first one. I was like, "Man,
Yes.
easy, great." Yeah, I think it was it too fast. Maybe it was too fast. I can't remember the song, not the way it happened, but
Oh, I'll
which
look it
one
up.
it was, or it
I,
might have been one that
I
ended
have it
up
pulled
on
up.
the first record.
Is that the one?
Is that the one? There you
Yeah.
go. Yes. Yeah, so that ended up on my first record.
Sweet.
Um, and that's actually a song about my grandma
Mm.
who I'm living with right now.
Oh,
It's just a great thing to do.
it is.
Yeah, so
Grandparents
that
are awesome.
they are. That
Yeah.
was really cool. I just couldn't believe that they found me. I felt
Yeah.
so underground
Yes.
at the time. I was
Totally.
like, I can't believe, someone found me.
Right. So I want to talk about that. So that journey from there to now. So I think I started following you when you were hiking Appalachian Trail. So I want to talk about that a little bit too. But then I saw you. I think it performed at the Observatory in San Diego,
Yeah,
opening up for, was it
Mild High
Mild
Club.
High Club? Yes, Mild High
Yeah,
Club. Yeah.
yeah,
So I want to understand that journey. So you get pressed on vinyl for the first time. You're making your full length record.
yes,
Um, Pandemic hits,
yes.
and then how do you like shape your career during the chaos of the pandemic, and then come out, as like a nationally touring act, opening up for like this big
Yeah,
band.
it was, gosh, it was, I feel like everybody's story is random and has a lot of luck and weird bits and whatnot. And so I came out with my first EP in 2018, and I had a lot of luck because I sent it to all the YouTube curators, and David
Ooh,
Dean
cool.
Burke
Yeah.
actually
Yes.
picked it up. Yes.
David Dean.
So
Hell yeah.
I had already kind of identified who the quote unquote tastemakers in my genre field were, and he was a big one for me. So my first single, he put it on his YouTube channel and it got like 40,000 views. And I was like, oh my God.
Yes.
It's funny because there's a lot of little moments where you think you've made it.
I agree.
And uh,
Absolutely.
it's really hard to ever, like, I really do not feel like I've made it because I'm living with my grandma and I can't afford to live on my own, kind of thing.
Totally,
There's a lot
man.
of thing, but to a lot of other people, I have made it at this point.
Yes.
I
Right.
still feel very much in the journey. So it's kind of funny to talk about the journey already. But
Yeah, but actually, I really like that because I was talking about this on the like last week's podcast about how I would find it more fascinating to talk to someone that's like a couple switchbacks ahead of me rather than already summited the mountain.
right,
You
yeah,
know, like
because your legs are still pumping. You're still
yes,
the blood flowing through. You're not like, that was nice. You're like, I'm
right,
still in it. Like,
right, or like yeah, when I was successful 40 years ago, this is how
right.
the industry worked. It's like yeah, I mean it's a little different. Like you're talking like okay, what YouTubers can help me break and finding those
Yeah,
little moments. Yeah, I
yeah.
I, I hear you.
And that's actually funnily enough still relevant. I feel like a lot
Yeah.
of things kind of fall out of favor. Like Spotify playlists 2018, they were a thing, but they weren't the thing,
Hmm.
which it's what it is now.
Hmm.
Like getting a YouTube curator to find you is great because they probably also have a Spotify playlist now.
Right. Right.
It's like you're mostly looking at Spotify. But anyway, so that was the very beginning. And I started to play as many shows as I could, basically. I was in New York, and it's great to be in an area like that because you've got Boston, Rhode Island.
Mm.
You can do little regional tours on the weekends and really kind of build a little bit of a profile just playing and meeting and really putting yourself out there. And that's really what happened is 2019, I had just played for a year straight, almost every weekend.
Wow.
I got my name out there enough
Yeah.
that I got asked to open for an artist called LA Salami at Rough Trade. And it was just someone at Rough Trade who loved my music and whatnot.
Cool.
And LA Salami was on a label called Sunday Best. I think he still is, which is based in London. That was November 2019. And LA Salami's manager saw my performance, was like,
All right.
immediately texted me saying, "Do you have any unreleased music?" And I had finished my first album and was slowly releasing singles. So I said, here's what I've got. And then I got the call January 2020 saying, he was like, I've got a label interested, I've got a publisher interested, I've got an agent interested. And I was like, what's the catch? And he was
Wow.
like,
Yes.
I would manage you. And I was like, okay, that seems okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it really worked really well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really good to have someone throughout that process, especially because 3 months later, as we all know, the world fell apart.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there's no more money in the world. There's no more
Mm-hmm.
deal. But
Mm-hmm.
we kept talking. In May 2020, we pinned the deal, and my first record came out that fall.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, it had some label push behind it. They're not at all a major; they're completely independent.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just huge. And uh, yeah, I mean, the funny thing is like by the time we signed the deal, I had finished the second record already.
Cool. Awesome.
So I was like ready to go.
Yeah. Just gunning.
And 2021 came around,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that shows were going to be kind of slow to come back because people were in the spring of 2021, like, let's go. And it was, we still had Omnicron, we still had the Beta, we still had all these variants to get through. So that's why I went and walked the trail, because
Yeah.
I really didn't want to get involved in the people like making people mask, or do I mask
Yeah.
on stage, or
Yeah.
like how do you like the whole etiquette around it?
Mm-hmm.
Also when you're playing shows, you're traveling, and everywhere is different. Everywhere has different etiquette.
Yeah.
I
Right.
just didn't really I just didn't really want to get involved in all that. So that's why I went and walked the trail. And
Mm-hmm.
then the fall, I was ready to come back. And so I hadn't played a show in 2 years almost at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. It was so
Cool.
good to get back.
Yes.
And
What was the first show back?
the first show back was in New York, which is, that's where I
Perfect.
was for 8 years. So I had never sold out a show before then. Then it was like 250 capacity. And I was like, oh my God, like, wow. And it was funny because that first tour, because I went from there to the UK to meet the label I had been working with for over a year.
Cool. That's
It was
awesome.
great. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
did a tour over there, and that was awesome. And I just didn't really look back after that. I was like, okay, I've got another record in my brain. Can
Mm-hmm.
I have somebody to go make it? And then they did, and that was Dream House, which came out at the beginning of last year. And yeah, so I haven't really got my head out of the sand since that moment, because I kind of took the opportunity and just ran with it.
Yeah, totally. And I love that. And I think that it is such a good idea to have, been like, okay, I'm going to go walk the trail, reconnect with myself just as a person, as an artist. And then
Yes,
you have more in the tank to be able to draw from now.
exactly. Oh, totally. That well is a very deep one that
Hmm.
keeps giving.
Yes. I love
Yeah,
that. I
yeah.
want I want to talk about where do you think your ideas come from? Like yeah, how do you source stuff? Is it just from the ether? Or do you have moments in your life you're like, oh, that's it? Or how does that flow?
I think you have to do it all if you want to. If I think for me, I have an underlying just need to document life, and
Okay.
just the experience of being a human is something to be celebrated and uh, put forth. Like, so there, it comes from a very almost primal like urgency of
Okay.
putting it down on paper, kind of
Right.
like
Yes, I get
just in
that.
how ephemeral everything is. I'm just very aware of death.
Hmm. For sure.
Anything
No.
come at any point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, but then when it comes to actually doing the thing, I feel like a lot of time I'm very lucky, because I kind of consider myself like an antenna, and I'm
Hmm.
just tuning into certain frequencies and put it, I mean, the real nitty gritty is, you hear a melody, you grab your phone as quick as you can, press record on the voice memos, get the base of it down, and then you take that to Logic Pro or Ableton or whatever you use, and actually give it some structure, and sit down with the guitar and figure out what the heck you just heard, kind of
Yeah.
deal. But other times like I've got a song coming out this year that's called "More Hurt for the Hurt Pile," and that was just like something
Cool name.
I thought I woke up with because I was not feeling good and
Mhm.
sad. So I woke up and I was like, "Well, more hurt for the hurt pile." And that was just the first thought, and I was like, "Such a funny emo,
Yeah, it's great.
self pitying thought," but I was like, "It's got to be a song." So
Yes.
yeah, so I feel like you got to take it wherever you can get it, really.
I like that. And I resonate with that too, where you just kind of have your antenna up. You gather these little fragments of things that kind of the void or God or whatever the
Yeah.
universe whispers to you. And
Right.
then you sort later because a lot of it's trash, but some of
Yeah.
it's gold.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
I,
a big part of like being a
uh,
quote unquote artist, which is kind of funny. I have a hate love relationship with that word. I kind of think of
mm,
myself more as an entertainer
okay.
than
Yeah.
because an artist, it just feels like a little too up there for me.
Yeah.
But I think the real art comes in being able to discern, being going into the listener seat and saying what is good or bad.
Yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
decision making. It's really art is
Mhm.
just decisions. Um, it's both. It's the inspiration and then the decision to let no one
Yeah.
hear it for
Yeah.
art.
Right. Well, but the decisions are so much more numerous than the inspiration. So like, yeah, like you have all this inspiration, you go, okay, little like here's a title or here's a little melody. And now I got to make a billion decisions of
Yeah.
like, okay, what does the snare drum sound like? What does the hi-hat sound like? How does this part go? Like how does the guitar fit in? What kind of tone? How would I play this live? Like it's like brrr, like a million things that are just around that little tiny nugget of an idea.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like right before this, I was editing
Mm.
a music video, and that is
Sweet.
like such a exercise in decision making because
Mm.
you have something like 30 minutes of footage that you need to get 2.5 minutes that is interesting to look at out of. And so you're just cutting, just decision, and just trust yourself.
Yeah. And it's like a skill like anything else. The more you do it, the more
Right.
you trust yourself and the more you know what the right decision to make is for you. Like, because there's no real right decision. There's just a right or decision for what you're going for, I guess. You
Right.
know? I like the concept too of the art is in the doing and in the crafting and in the decision making. Because I feel like that's an easier thing to own. Because
Yes.
if the art's and the inspiration, it's like I don't own that. It just kind of comes or
Oh,
goes.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's decision making, which is, yeah, like you said, it's the skill you have to practice a lot to get good at it. And it's not necessarily speed, speed is a factor. You should, I think you should work quickly. I mean, but that depends on, what you're crafting. If it's like your masterpiece album, take as much time as you need. But on the other hand, I feel like, they say, what was Picasso or someone said, inspiration finds you working. Like you should be
Mm-hmm.
working. That's when your antenna is going to really be fine tuned.
I agree. And a lot of times when you're in that flow, you know the next thing that you have to do.
Yeah, it's like you do. I do feel like you do get faster, and you do like boom, 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 boom. You or like you see where the bottlenecks are. There's,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
when it comes to songwriting for me. I know what my bottlenecks are, and
What are
it's
those?
it's lyrics for sure.
Lyrics. Okay. Yeah.
Always lyrics. Melody is fun. Chords to go under that are fun. Harmonies are fun. Arrangement is fun. Lyrics are hard. They can be fun and they can be funny,
Mm-hmm.
but it so often it's just like that's where you're like, oh my god, this is too cringe.
Mm-hmm.
Is it whatever? What am I saying? What am I trying to do?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, and there's a weird feeling of like divination where, especially if you have a melody, it's like, what does this melody want to say?
Yes. What does the song want? What is
Yeah.
the
Right.
song trying to say? And that actually lets me get out of my own way more so than what am I trying to say as an artist. I do kind of try to hear what the song wants to say.
How do you do that?
It's about the antenna, having the antenna up and hearing like, okay, this is more longing. This is
Okay.
more, this one feels like an anthem.
Yeah.
like it's really about the feeling and trying not to get too. I know that Wilco do this really smart thing of not describing any sound with another band with another band. They don't say, oh, I want this, um, I want this Steely Dan guitar or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Okay. Okay.
it's like one of their rules. They don't allow you to do that. So I try not to be like, ooh, I want to write another version of Is This It by the Strokes or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Try to get away from that.
Hmm.
Um, that's the only thing I mean, I'm sure there's other stuff, but you have to be wary of certain things. You
Mm.
learn to be wary of certain things, I guess.
I like that. And because
Yeah.
it's so natural, especially when you're collaborating with people, to want to
Yes,
reach for references.
especially collaborating. Yeah, you really want to reach for references, which I mean, I don't think there's inherently anything wrong with them. It's like how you're doing. If it's like a crutch
Okay.
versus, I would much prefer to use descriptive words like a bouncy guitar or like a rather than a this specific. Listen to this. We need to copy that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Exactly. Do you feel like internalizing references is kind of part of what you like to do? Like, because
Yeah,
there's that different thing of like if you just ingest a bunch of that music over time, like it kind of becomes part of you, and then it's not really a reference anymore. It's like filtered through you.
absolutely. Yeah, I think you do. I think you do that subconsciously
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
So you might as well take ownership over it and be conscious about like because you are kind of the summation of everything you've ever heard. That
Mhm.
is that is your unique footprint you're going to put on the song.
Yeah.
Besides, like also your own inclinations or whatever. But a
Yep.
lot of that is based on just what you've intook.
Hmm.
Uh, so, but that's the funny thing is like. I I think everyone thinks they have good taste in music.
Yeah. Right.
So like I don't really worry. I'm not too precious. I'm not like I can't
Hmm.
hear this bad music or
Yes. Right.
bad music, like
Yeah.
I do enjoy some music that I also think is bad. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Same. Yep.
you know,
Totally.
it's just about intention and being conscious of,
Mhm.
what you're doing and what you're putting out there.
Yeah, and I think the idea of trying to cultivate your own personal type of taste, not necessarily to mean that my taste is better than your taste. It's just like this is my taste. And
Mhm.
like there are some songs that I listen to and I go, I love this song. The snare drum sucks though. But like
Mhm.
then that actually makes me feel good because it's like I can
Yes.
like this thing but not like that thing. So that means what I'm gonna add if I was in a
Yes.
session with that artist, I'd fix the snare drum.
That was something that really changed everything for me when I started to really make records,
Okay.
which I mean has only been the past 4 years, really.
Mm-hmm.
When I started to get into the nitty-gritty of recording. I mean, I don't record every part. My producer does the drums for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
and then we bring in certain people if we
For
want
sure.
like double bass or whatever.
Yeah.
But really hearing every level and going over the mixes many times and everything, it does change how you hear music. Because you start to say stuff like I would have picked a different snare, or
Yeah.
I wouldn't have put so much reverb on that, or
Yeah.
things like the nitty gritty. But then even with songwriting, I find myself a lot of times being like, oh, because one of the things that happens most often in my songwriting is that I'll write a song, realize that I just want to hear the chorus, and that actually
Ooh.
the verse, like that actually I want the chorus to be the new intro
Okay.
because I think I can go somewhere even more interesting.
Right.
And sometimes that process gets repeated and the new chorus becomes the new intro
Yeah.
and stuff goes around. So a lot of times I do hear a song and I'm like, why didn't they put that part first? It's like
Yeah, totally.
so much better. It would have been like I kind of find myself wanting to rearrange other
That's
people's songs.
cool. I like that.
Yeah. Which is
I really
fun.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's cool. But you're also like you also come to appreciate um because I'm like, I am a songwriter in the digital streaming era. So I am
Mhm.
a little biased to put the hook sooner.
Yep. Yep.
Even my own songwriting, I kind of put the hook in the first 5 seconds. And if
Yeah.
it's like a guitar riff, it's going to hit you right in the face.
Exactly.
And part of that is just the medium that
Yeah.
I have to go through.
I mean, it's the same thing as like late 50s radio, though. It's
Ooh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like boom in your face.
yeah,
Whereas if I was more in the era of an album,
yeah,
like a 70s artist, I feel like
yeah.
I would write slower songs and I
Hmm.
would write songs where it's more of a build.
Yeah.
And I appreciate those, but it's just like today's music is a little different.
Totally. I'm in the process right now of trying to do both, and it's really hard. But I'm
Mhm.
trying because I'm writing an album. It's my first album that'll be pressed to vinyl as a whole thing. And so
Mhm.
I'm thinking of it like more of a 70s artist, but I have to have at least 3 or 4 songs that it's like hook, hey, like streaming
Yeah,
song,
exactly.
without making it feel like an outlier on the album, and also making music that like I love. So I'm trying to chart those difficult waters.
It's
Um,
difficult because you're
yeah.
kind of given two paths to success
Mhm.
for a good streaming song.
Yeah.
It has to either work really well in the background and
Mm.
essentially no hooks,
Hmm.
or very hook heavy, front loaded.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that get put on repeat.
Yeah. And it is such an interesting thing about playlisting
Hmm.
because it's hard. I don't know. Like you're saying, there's like a certain element of a song that works well around other songs of similar genre that provides just enough of an angle, but doesn't so angular that it sticks out.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like obviously you don't want to write or produce too heavy into that direction, but it is the medium in which your like success is determined. So you have to be somewhat willing to think about it.
Yeah. Also, like the song doesn't die. I don't know. Like I feel
Mm,
like you can make a painting and it goes into a museum and like
mm,
I don't know. Like, but you make a song and it's gonna live with you for the rest of your life. Like you're
yeah,
gonna have to play it all the time. You're gonna have to whatever. But not only that, it's like where is it gonna live? It doesn't live in a museum or whatever. It lives on Spotify, and
yeah,
so you have to think about that. Like you're a little bit more beholden to the medium,
yeah,
kind of.
for sure. For sure. Sorry to interrupt this very important broadcast, but it's time for one more advertisement for myself for this podcast. What I'm asking for is for you to rate it 5 stars, share it with your friends. This is like the most important thing for this podcast to grow. So if you want to do this, you go onto the podcast screen, right? You click on the dot 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 on Spotify. Under there it says rate show, and you go and you click it. 5 stars. If you could do that for me, that's the best way for the algorithms and all that stuff to share it out with the world. I know that it's a lot to ask, but if you could please just hit those 3 dots and then a 5 star, it would really help us out and helps us, get the word out and spread the love of music. So thank you. If you're listening on YouTube, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. And here's the rest of the episode. And I think that it'll be interesting to see how that continues to evolve too, because obviously video games are a big part of
I
music, but I think
thought a
that'll just continue
lot.
to grow.
I
Go.
think it's going to continue to grow a lot. I have a lot
Yeah.
of thoughts about that because I did not
Yeah.
know until recently that 60%, we'll have to fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure this 60% of Americans between the
Yeah.
age of 5 and 14
Yeah.
are on Roblox.
No
Like,
way.
yeah,
You're
like
kidding me.
no, over half of people in that are young are on Roblox, which I didn't even know is that big, but I also didn't even know really what Roblox was. Like, and a big component of it
Mhm.
is kids making and designing and coding video games.
Okay.
And I'm like, there's going to be a whole generation of
Hmm.
indie game developers
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are going to need music.
Yeah. Right.
I'm trying to make my video game music
Yeah.
ready to go. So when they come knocking, I got some for them.
Yes. I like that. So what are you working on video game music right now?
I am. It's
Cool.
not,
Tell me son.
well, it's like I just kind of, I guess I'm working on it. It's not the right way to, well,
Hmm.
it's like there's a pool and I'm filling up the pool right now.
Okay.
I can't swim in the pool yet and
Okay.
like make decisions. I'm just kind of like accumulating sounds and
Nice.
like 808 stuff and
Hmm.
like Super Nintendo sounds and stuff like that I'm kind of putting those all into a bank of
Mm.
sounds so that I'm kind of like creating my color palette.
I
So when
like
I
it.
do go paint on the canvas, I've got this like kind of video game, uh, you know, color smatter.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. And I don't think people talk about that enough because I do the same thing before every album. I
Mhm.
try and select some sounds, some new plugins, maybe some presets, like some vibe statements that are like, this is part of the defining sound of this thing. Like,
Right.
and I'm not going to stray too far from it. I'll obviously add stuff and do things, but
Mhm.
the pre-production in the modern digital streaming age is a really fascinating concept that I don't think it's like explored very much. I think we're all just kind of doing our own thing.
Everyone's kind of doing their own thing, which is great, and some people are doing it really well. And what it's really is
Yep.
what it really is about is world building. Like you really have to
Cool. World building. Yeah.
you have to build your own world that people want to come back to. That is, like you said, like different enough, but still familiar, but
Yeah.
is like your own world, kind of
Yeah.
deal.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that analogy. That's part of the reason why I like working in headphones a lot
Mm.
because it feels like the ultimate like I'm in the world.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
um, that's cool. Yeah. So if anybody's out there, indie games,
I know. Yeah.
hit
Hit
up
it up.
JW. Have you read? Yeah. I'm so fascinated to see how this whole thing evolves and changes because it already has just over the last few years.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. In terms of songwriting, anything that you do, if you get in a rut or if you don't know how to kind of get to the next thing, like any techniques or anything that you pull out the bag to try to progress, or do you set it aside, work on something else? Like how do you
I
flow
kind of
once you hit a wall?
zigzag. I think that's
Yeah.
the way to just always stay on your toes. Is like if something's not working, throw it away. Go work on something else, and then like maybe that will be. I have a lot of songs that are Frankenstein
Yeah.
that like
Me
I
too.
just the chorus wasn't there. It would never. I just couldn't find something that was interesting, and then I go write another song, and I'm like, oh my god, this chorus actually belongs to this song, and you're like, oh, it's like you got kids and you're dressing them up and you're like, oh, I put your socks on you and blah blah blah. Like, let me switch this back around and figure this out. Yeah, I'd say just because I'll marinate on songs for long time, like, and they'll just kind of live on the outskirts of my thoughts.
Yes.
Uh, and some of them never see the light of day. Some of them I have so many unfinished songs. Like I feel like that's probably the biggest thing that I do if I do get asked by other songwriters and stuff. Is just like, what do you do with all your unfinished song? Like, don't you have a lot of unfinished projects? And it's like, yeah, I think you need those to finish stuff. Like those are
Yeah, I do
not
too.
they're not waste.
Mm-mm.
They're it's kind of like compost. Like
Yeah, cool.
it's gonna make the soil more fertile.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily gonna be a great tomato plant, but even if it's crap, it'll help the tomato grow.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm gonna keep that in my head. That's a really good way to put it because
yeah.
it's true. I mean, there's I have the same thing. Song, hundreds, not thousands of at least song fragments.
Hmm.
Um, that sometimes that you find a little thing and you can plug
Hmm.
it in, but most of the time no. Most of the
Yeah.
time it's just like I explored it. It was bad, or it was just it just didn't resonate. It wasn't exciting enough to finish.
Right.
Um, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. It is really okay. Because yeah, it's okay to like you don't even have to finish it. That's the thing, is like
Mhm.
we're like, I have all these fragments, like I can't finish them. I'm like, well, maybe you're not supposed to. Maybe they're not that good.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And
No.
but it's tough because there's also the element of like, yeah, and finish your freaking record. Like, there's those two poles.
Right. And it's like finish freaking record, but it's got to be stuff that excites you
Exactly.
and
Yes.
that like it doesn't always come easily. That's for sure.
Yep.
But there are sometimes it does, and then like
Yeah.
and sometimes it comes easily and it's good, and it's like boom, like Paul McCartney woke up singing yesterday.
Yeah. Right.
Sometimes that happens, and
Right.
it's amazing, and you're like, yes, like so maybe just collect those, and when you have 10 of them, call it an album.
Yeah. Or do what like we were saying is like take a fragment. And I really liked what you said of like develop that as a chorus.
Hmm.
Realize like, oh, those verses aren't strong. What if I change that chorus to be a pre-chorus or a verse, and then try to
Yeah.
develop something in the back, and you just have this kind of like strongest idea pushing, 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 and then eventually you might find like there's some poem or something like that, the golden chord of the muses, and it's like
Mm.
every once in a while you grab hold of that thing, and then it pulls you to the end of the song. And you're like, oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
But it wasn't there in the beginning. You just you kind of like had to get it started, then you grasping through the air, and then you find the thing, and then you're like, oh, I'm done. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And the fragments, I've got this folder on my Dropbox of like haunt melodies. They're the ones that I sing when I'm cooking that just never go away, and they haunt me until I put them in a song, and then when I put them in a song, they go away.
Oh
It's
wow.
super weird, man. I don't know why. But like I keep capturing them. Like I have to put them into something, even if it's a joke song. They have to they have to find a resting place because
They will
otherwise they haunt me.
I mean, if there are ghosts of human souls, there could very well be ghosts of song souls,
Cool.
of the melodies who have unfinished business.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And some of them are not very good, but they're just in there. I'm like, I gotta find a home for them. They're too malicious spirits. I want to hear the your touring experience. What was it like? Opening and going on the road and playing as a solo act
Yeah.
in these big theaters and stuff. What was that like?
That was amazing. That was the first time, because even though I'm solo, I've always played with a band before that
Yeah.
Mountain Bike Club tour.
Cool.
And for production reasons, they asked me to do it alone because they
Mhm.
were like an 8-piece and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't want to do the sad acoustic thing.
Mhm.
I don't want to be the guy who makes a loop in front of you
Mhm.
because it's so nerve-wracking. It's so easy to mess up.
Yeah.
And it's just there's people who do that, and that's great, but it's just
Mhm.
not my type of
Yeah, that's
music.
like what they do. Like
That's what they
that's their,
do. It's like
yeah.
that's what they do. I'm like this. I write songs. I'm not gonna loop them in front of you.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it was actually I was on Instagram and I saw that there was a guy who was doing a cover of one of my songs to a
Mm.
backtrack that he had made himself in Ableton using like totally different presets and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool because he had put the rhythm guitar and everything in there, and so he was just playing the lead and then singing. And I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Mm.
So I asked him if he could make my whole set.
No way.
Yeah,
Cool.
if I could pay him to make my whole set. And he was
It's a
like,
great
"What?
idea.
Oh, it's like this is amazing." So that was that set that you saw was just like a 30-minute 8-song
Yeah.
set, but
Mhm.
we've now done about 25 backing tracks together. So
Mhm.
I have a full hour and a half if I need to.
Cool.
Uh, and that really like opened my eyes to because I had done, I toured at the end of 2021, and then I had a tour at the beginning of 2022, and then I had that tour started in April of 2022. And after that, I was like, I think I can just keep doing this because getting people to take off time off work and all that kind of stuff is like really hard. And not just that, but like paying them, well, and
Mhm.
you're asking.
Hotels and yeah.
Oh, hotels. Oh my gosh. All the expenses just get so crazy so quickly. And so once I learned that I could do um, a solo thing, really totally solo, I was like, I'm gonna just do this for a while until I
Mhm.
can really pay people what they deserve.
Yep.
Um, and so that's what I did. I mean, I really haven't stopped touring since then
Mhm.
because it was just such a good experience. And I was like, I think this is my life now.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it really has been. And luckily
Mhm.
it works well enough to the point where I can do a month on and a month off. And then,
Cool.
I mean, last year I was on tour for 10 months. So
Wow.
2023, yeah, 2023 was crazy.
Yeah.
I did over 100 shows, and it was,
Awesome.
yeah, it was sweet.
That's
And
so cool.
played in Costa Rica, played all over the
Sweet.
US,
Mhm.
did some Canada, like did Western Europe. It's great. And it helps everything. It helps, people listen, it helps you get fans, it helps you get whatever. It is extremely tiring and hard on the body and the mind and all that. But it's just so cool. You're living the dream. And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and you don't feel like you're dragging anybody with you, which is
Mhm.
how even when your band is super excited by week 4, they're not
Yeah.
gonna be excited, and they're like, "Why am I like this guy's my boss. Like what? Like, and you're like,
Hmm.
no, I never wanted to be a boss. Um, I just want to be my own boss. But so that's been a blessing because now I can do a month tour with a full band and
Hmm.
not be incredibly stressed
Hmm.
that not going to break even or something because I know that I can go tour on my own and make money.
Yeah,
And so it was incredibly liberating doing that tour because I was like, oh my gosh, I figured it out.
you did. You did,
Yeah.
and it was a great show. And
It
that
was a
was
good
it
show.
was really impressive. Yeah.
The one thing that is funny is that I went to my agent
Hmm.
because of an agent, they got me that show, and I was like, I want to play 100 shows a year, and he was like, not with me. A lot of work on my end,
Yeah.
and I'm not making $80,000 a show or something. I'm not making
You're right.
money to where he's like, yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's go. Yeah, exactly.
Couple hundred, so he gets like 10% of that. He gets like $20 a show, so he's like, maybe not. Like, so we had to work on a deal where I can
Hmm.
book myself in anything that's like unofficial DIY
Mm.
or anything that's like a bar, like less than a 250 cap, basically.
Yeah.
I win, which is great because I know a lot of other agents who are extremely, you don't do anything until it goes through me kind of deal.
Hmm.
That was the other thing I learned with getting an agent is they do not really want you to play the same city more than twice a year, which I
Okay.
was like, I
Yeah.
was playing every weekend in New York, and suddenly
Right.
I'm told that I can only play there every 6 months. And I'm like, well, how am
Mm.
I supposed to live if this is how I make money?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
But so you just got to keep moving.
Yeah, right. That makes sense too. So so the it makes a lot of sense too then why obviously your ethos too like, ties in really well with this, but you started playing all these really cool DIY shows. I saw like a recap video of all these different places. Can you talk a little bit about kind of like the places that you played, some of the experiences that you had?
Yes, this is going to be kind of rambly, but
Please.
I was, it
I
all,
love
it all,
it.
I was in the UK on that first tour and I was about to cross the road and I almost got ran over because the road is different there.
Yes. Yeah.
And my thought process for some reason was like, if that had killed me, my four regrets would be that I'd never had children, which that's a whole other thing. Like, is it moral to have children? I don't know. We could have a whole conversation, but I want a kiddo. I never owned a dog or like a home. And fourth, I never did my dream tour because
Oh.
I have built up so many friends and connections and all these people. And then I felt like as soon as I was like in my like, boom, I got swooped up by an agent who
Hmm.
told me not to do a lot of stuff. And so I was like, okay. But, the shows got better and the shows got bigger and it was really cool. But then I was like, but I never got to do the tour that I wanted to do, which is set up just with the help of fans, just in weird places. And so that was like a real moment because I was like, man, I can't live with that kind of regret of not doing that.
Yeah.
And if everything goes well for me, then down the line it's going to get harder and harder to do a thing like that. Also, just
Yeah. Right.
older, it gets harder to do. You
Hmm.
you get less excited about playing someone's backyard, but um, so that's really what it was. And I just knew that if I just told Instagram I wanted to do this, that
Hmm.
there were people who'd be like, I've got a backyard. And
Yeah.
um, it was so beautiful and random. It was like, one person was like, there's a roller rink in town that does shows. And I was like, let's go. And a lot of emailing and keeping my spreadsheet organized. And,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who were like, you should play there. And I'm like, cool. Do you know anybody there? They're like, no. And I'm like, okay, how do you think I should proceed? And they're like, I don't know, man. And I'm like, okay, never mind. Like, you know, you go down a lot of rabbit holes, you suss out stuff, what is real, what's not, and then you route a tour. And that's what I did. And it started on the West Coast and it kind of went up and down America. It did like up and down and up and down, really. I went over to Boise, started in Oregon, over to Boise, down to Las Cruces. I mean, there's
Yeah.
places in between there. Over to Oklahoma, down to Texas, over to Baton Rouge, up to Michigan, over Lake Michigan, down to Ohio, up and over to Maine, and then I went all the way back to Oklahoma, and then the great thing is like just because that was like kind of the concept of it, but now like I'm on Friday, this is it's basically another dream tour,
Cool.
except instead of being like, hey everybody, I want to play weird places. Now I just know weird places to play in different
Mhm.
towns. So I'm like,
Yes.
instead of just like getting all this information and then trying to figure out what to do with it, I'm like, okay, I want to start here and end up there. Let's play places in between.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm about to do on Friday. I leave for tour and I'm doing Boston to Austin.
Cool.
Hmm.
Awesome. I've been noticing you've been doing like live streams too.
Yeah.
Curious how that's been going. And do you think it's the same fans or different audiences, like the same people that come see you play, or do you think it's like a different crowd or more global? I'm just curious how that's been
Oh,
going.
it's definitely more global.
Cool.
And I can tell you the funny thing is, it's like I've never really, to be totally honest, like never really taken off as like a live stream artist.
Yeah.
On Instagram, I'll have about like 20 people, and
Hmm.
I'm like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
And I was doing these with a company called Ursa Live because they approached me and were like, we want you to, and they like pay me a little guarantee. And I'm like, okay. On that, I get like 8 people and I know them by name. It's like Leo, my guy. He's a guy in Philadelphia who loves me, Manon, this woman in Manchester who loves me. It's like, it's fans who definitely come out to shows when I'm in their town, but they
Yeah.
want more
Yeah.
and they want it every week. And awesome. And I'm really blessed to have that, but I'm just like, I don't really, maybe it's the future. Um, it's hard to tell with live streaming because I always put myself in the position of the fan, and I'm like, I don't ever watch live streams. Like, I'll maybe see someone goes live on Instagram, click on it, check it out. I'm not sticking around. I just can't. I
Hmm.
just can't. This is a little bit of a lewd um, comparison, but
Hmm.
it's like phone sex. It's just
Hmm.
not going to work for me. It's just not like live music is live music.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's magical and you have to be
Yeah.
in the room
Hmm.
and to do it through a screen and for it to be live,
Hmm.
it's just like it just doesn't work for me. I don't know
Hmm.
why. I
Hmm.
just it's just not interesting.
Yeah.
And like there are live sessions that are done really well, like
Hmm.
obviously NPR Tiny Desk and
Hmm.
KXP, and there's people who do it really well, but that's edited and mixed and
Hmm.
like so not live, even though it's a live.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
a different kind of studio recording, really, in a lot of
Yeah,
ways. Yeah.
exactly. It is like a studio. Yeah, it's kind of like harkening back to how people made records in the 70s. Like,
Exactly. Yep.
it's like instead
Get in
of
the
doing
room and
track, go into a room,
yeah.
but it's not live streaming. And it's like, yeah. So maybe I'm just slow to pick up on it and it'll like, it's got to be something different. I am just like, to me, it's like you are doing a weird imitation of something else rather
Yeah.
than its own thing, you
Right.
know? Like,
Well, it's kind of like what you were talking about just the very beginning of the conversation about it being familiar but different. Like that's the sweet spot. This thing is like it's a little too different. It's like oh, it goes into that uncanny valley a little bit. Maybe is that kind of what you're saying?
well, I guess it's like,
Hmm.
but it's almost even worse than that because it's like
Cool.
familiar. Like I know what live music is, and it's not
Yeah.
that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. 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 I
like
get you. Uh huh. Uh huh.
it's. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into my opinions, but it's like the new Wonka movie. It's like I know what it should be.
That's funny. That's really good. That's really good. I wanted to talk to you about your Valentine songs.
Yeah, yeah. Talk about
That's
creative exercise.
super
Talk about-
rad. Seems super hard.
oh my gosh, it breaks your brain. But
could you
you,
could you tell the listeners what even this is and kind
yeah.
of where it
So
came from?
basically, I will. This is the 5th year I just wrapped up, but basically, I just tell people, hey. If you'd like a song for your Valentine or your loved one, or even if you don't have one and you want a song for you, I will write that song if you just tell me the name of the person and the reason that you love them. And first year I did it completely not asking for anything and realized that was not smart because I got too many requests. And so then I've just kind of started asking for donations, thinking that it would reduce the amount of requests. But I think I'm gonna have to next year just be like, I'm gonna stop saying suggested donation and be like, it costs this. Because that's the other thing is sometimes suggested donation to some people means you don't gotta pay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which then I'm like, it's fine because I love doing this, but kind of like, why am I writing 100 and this was 130 songs this
Oh
time?
my God.
And it will break your brain because I could be totally evil and just use the same instrumental for everybody and change the
Right.
name.
Right.
But I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to write 130 individual pieces of music. And it is just so crazy. But the way I do that
Hmm.
is collecting voice memos throughout the year. Something has some kind of promise and it's like a little bit more, it's like there's some kind of like, yeah, I can hear a song out of it. I will label it V-Day candidate. And so,
Cool.
so I
Okay.
will end up by the end of the year, I'll have about 50 or so V-Day candidates. And so I've already got 50 seeds of music
Ah.
where the requests start coming in. So that kind of buffers it a little bit.
Are you ever going to release them all?
I think one day I will um
Like Mac DeMarco style, like 350 of
never
them?
never like that. Never had some really opinion. Like on the one hand, I like respect him for doing that. On the other hand, I'm like, this is homework. Like I found you find yourself Googling like what are the ones I should listen to? Like
Exactly.
you don't want to listen to 9 hours of music. I don't think I would ever do that to somebody or like any of my people who like me. What I would is I do have like a vault in my brain that's going towards the Patreon because I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one day I'm going to be out of my all my contracts or whatever. I'm
Mhm.
just going to have a ton of material to share with people, and they could have access to it for $1 a month or something like
Yeah,
that. And they
right,
could
right. Hmm.
hear every Valentine's Day song they ever wanted to. And the
Yes.
year that I actually have like 8 songs with John in the title, not just.
Yes. That's so cool. Yeah, I'll sign up because I'm so impressed, and it's what a cool exercise and what a cool thing for fans, and what a difficult task to keep coming back to. Like doing that one year would have made total sense. To come back for year five, it's like, man, you're a masochist.
And the funny thing is, my mom always is like, we'll have a call and I'll be like, I'm miserable. Like, I don't know why I did this. Like, I am like, just, I can't go out. I'm like, have to be inside working all day.
Yes.
But part of that is because January sucks already. So
Yeah.
why not make it suck worse? And, but my mom's like, I'm going to remind you before you make that post next year. So I'm still gonna do it because I love it, but I think I am gonna. I've never asked for more than $25, and this time I might just be like, "All right, $50.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
wants one?"
Yeah.
See,
Exactly.
I feel like I won't get 130 yet.
Yeah. A
Requests.
little supply and demand. I get it.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your new single, Orbit. It sounded awesome. Would love to kind of hear how that song came about. Like, how'd you write it? How'd you produce it? How'd that all play out?
That one was, I wrote that in 2022 when so basically the way I met my current partner is
Hmm.
they came to one of my shows. We were friends online. We had talked and everything. They're a clown. And they offered to give, basically the way we met is they offered to give me a ride from LA to Oklahoma
Mm.
because they live in South Carolina. And
Wow.
so they did. And on the road trip, we fell in love. And
Aw.
by the end of it, we were like, by the time they dropped me off here at my grandma's, we were
Mhm.
like, let's be together. And so it was very quick and it was very like, wow, like all of a sudden and
Mhm.
amazing. And
Mhm.
then they left to South Carolina and I
Hmm.
was going to visit them in a few weeks, but I was
Hmm.
left with all of these feelings of head over heelsness.
Mm.
And
Yes.
so I felt like this is I've been writing songs almost my whole life, and I'm like,
Mm.
this is the moment of falling in love that I need to,
Mm.
a lightning in a bottle.
Yes.
And so that's really where it came from,
Hmm.
is it's just wanting to capture like a very special feeling.
I love that.
Uh, and so it's all, they make me feel like this. That's what the whole song is about. It's about
Mm.
how you feel, how someone makes you feel. And so yeah, I'm really happy that it's finally coming out because I wrote it and recorded it last year, and I've really just been on a journey. My whole last year was really trying to figure out what to do with my next batch of songs
Hmm.
because my record deal was done. I had a
Hmm.
3 album deal, and then it was like, okay, do I resign? Do I try to upgrade? Do I just, see what's out there? And it's kind of bleak. It's kind of hard to, I don't want to discourage anybody,
Hmm.
but I felt like I was like, okay, like I'm me now, and I've got 3 albums under my belt. Surely, not that like I've gone viral or, you know, I don't have a million monthly listeners or anything like that, but I was like, I've got a career going. Like
Hmm.
I should be able to do this. Um, and it was really hard.
Yeah.
A lot of people were like, nope.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, it felt like going back to square one and just being like, oh, right, I forgot that it's just constant rejection
Yeah.
when you're not like have a label being like, everything you do is great. And like, we
Right.
love you and we love everything you do. And here's money.
Yeah.
You know, then you're like, when you get outside of that, you're like,
Yeah.
what's it like out here? I want to go
Yeah.
back inside.
I hear it. No,
Yes.
it's amazing how much, and it doesn't even have to be money, but just having people that are in your corner or like believe in you.
Yeah.
Um, that is, and it can be family too, but having somebody like in the business that goes, no,
Yes.
no, no, what you're doing isn't crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the biggest thing. And I mean, I ended up signing with Born Losers, who are amazing. Um, and like, to be completely honest, I was looking
Mhm.
for like a ton of money. I was like,
Yeah, yeah, why
I
not?
was like, I was like, I don't want to buy
Yeah,
a house. I just want to be able to live
live in a
in,
house. Yeah,
yeah. Like, and I don't want to buy a car, but I would love to like start making payments on a car. I have
right,
like,
right.
I'm getting older. I want stuff, and
Yeah,
hard hard to get stuff when
it
you're,
is. It is.
and I ultimately didn't go with a big money thing. I
Mhm,
went with a label that had people who were real
mhm.
and who were really hardworking and who seemed genuinely passionate about the music. Because the most frustrating thing is like you don't get a lot of flat out no's. You get a lot of no calls and
Yeah.
no replies back and some little interest, but like don't push us too hard because then we'll tell you our roster's full kind of deal.
Mhm,
It's like
mhm,
you get a lot of like maybe like
mhm,
so it just gets super infuriating. You're just like, just someone tell me if you want me.
mhm, mhm.
They did. And so I was
Yeah.
like, cool.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Um, One last question. This is kind of how I like to end the pod with everybody. So the show's called Love Music More. The
Yes.
segment is called Love Music Why. And this is the
Mhm.
why behind why you wake up the next morning and do it again. Like
Mm.
why do you love this thing? Why do you give so much to it? Obviously like having that question of like, yeah, I want stuff, I want money. It's like why do you not just like why do you sacrifice that to do
Right.
this?
Right.
Like why? Why? What keeps you doing it? What keeps you sacrificing? Why do you love this so much?
I love it so much. Yeah, if you want stuff, you don't want to go into music.
No, no.
I have friends with so stuff who have different jobs that
Yes.
them the money to get more stuff.
Yes.
Um, I do it because language fails because you can't. It's just you can't. I just feel. like I'm not complete without music because I can't explain to you how I feel or like with words or really even like communicate myself properly without the help of music. And like beyond that personal reason, it like the reason I think of myself more as an entertainer than an artist is because I love putting smiles on people's faces. And this is not the easiest way, but this is the way that fulfills me the most to do it. And I get reminded constantly at shows and through messages and other ways that people are listening and they love it and they want more. And it's just such a wholesome relationship you have with fans. Um, I mean, it should be. It should be completely wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
uh, because you are both interacting in this dialogue of, of picking up where language fails, of expressing, hurt. For example, hurt is one of the biggest things that is really hard to say with words. Um, and joy as well. It's like you can say I'm happy, or you can
Mm-hmm.
play a really nice sounding chord, and that one's going to be better. You know, so that's what I would say.
I like that. I totally agree. Especially for the things that are, yeah, like hurt or mourning.
Mm,
It and there's a I'm I hear you on the lyric thing. Lyrics are really hard.
mm,
Um, Music is able to elevate some of the words that I write to make them sound way more poignant than I could do in poetry because I'm not really a poet. But
right.
if I repeat the same thing enough times over interesting sounding chords, I think you'll get the emotion more than what the lyrics even are. So I totally
Yeah.
hear you and I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing and it's something worth sacrificing for. And then hopefully it pays you back, like
Yeah.
I believe it will. I'm a big fan of what you do. I'm a big fan of your music and your ethos and everything that you do. And your pants. We share the same pants, by the way. I don't know if you know this, but I'm not sure who bought them first.
Is it the colorful ones?
The colorful ones.
Yes, 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 yes.
I saw you live. I was like, dang it, we have the same pants.
No, it's so funny because that I got that Instagram ad like right before that tour, and I was like, "Those are my tour pants." And I
Yes.
got so many compliments,
You're so good.
and then I started to get I have those pants. Oh, my friend has those pants. Oh, I've seen those
You got
pants. And
you
I'm
got them
like,
early, man.
okay, now I had to retire them after that
Did you?
tour.
Well, I saw
Oh,
you tore them up like you just wore them to death.
yes, I did. I did. I only wore those pants for the whole tour. Put that aside because I was like, now people send me photos of people.
No way.
They're like, yeah, just on the street, they'll be like, hey, I saw someone wearing your pants. I'm like, okay, my pants now. Come on now.
You gotta be more than the pants. You gotta
Yeah,
transcend,
exactly.
man.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for chatting, JW. I loved it. It was a great conversation, and I'm a big fan of your music, and I can't wait to see you again in tour sometime.
Sweet. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Take it easy.
Peace.